So welcome to my channel. I'm Natasha Tessier, and for years I've helped people just like you move to the great state of Texas. I do know agents all over this state and would love to refer you if you're looking at different cities. I can connect you with really great realtors who will take care of you and work hard and fight for you like I do. But in this video, I just wanted to go over kind of the good and the bad with moving to Texas and some of the things that you need to know before you move here that realtors don't necessarily share with you. So if you can hit the subscribe button below, I'd love to get to know you. Comment and tell me where you're watching from and kind of what your plans are for moving to Texas, or maybe you're just considering it and just getting to know the area. The first thing, number one, is going to be the weather. Texas is hot. It doesn't matter if you're in Houston, San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, it's just hot. No matter where you live here, you're gonna have heat over the summer. Now, Houston is more humid because we have more rain. That also means it's more green. So a lot of people don't like Dallas because it's hot, but it doesn't have the tall, green, lush area. It just kind of depends on what you're looking for and where you're coming from. I have clients that have moved here from Fresno, California, and they think that Fresno is a lot hotter than Houston. So it really just depends on where you're coming from and what your expectations are, but I'm not gonna lie to you, it's hot. Now, a lot of my clients move from the north and we're just in the water all summer. You know, we're out on Lake Conroe playing, we're in the swimming pool, we're in the neighborhood swimming pool, or at the country club or whatever. There are ways to stay cool over the summers. And I usually walk every single day. Even today, it was raining this morning, but I'm gonna, get my work done and then go out and go for a walk. So almost every single day you can be outside. Now, I would not go walking some people do, but at 2 o'clock in the middle of July when it's super hot, in the summers, I usually walk in the mornings. Okay. And then along with the weather, of course, is flooding and hurricanes and tornadoes and all the things. We do not live in Tornado Alley. I know there are a lot of tornadoes seen here. I have never seen anybody have any massive damage from a tornado. I've seen fences knocked down, maybe like a corner of a roof. I've never heard of anybody getting killed from a tornado here. Now, when I lived in Alabama, that was a different story, but here it's really, and really as you go further north to Oklahoma, Dallas, Lubbock, Oklahoma, those areas are Tornado Alley. We do have them, but I've never seen a tornado touch down or cause any major destruction. Now, flooding and hurricanes, of course, we live by the coast. Where I live out in Montgomery, I'm over an hour from Galveston. We really don't have a lot of that. A lot of the new neighborhoods are safe from the flooding because the way they're building the houses, they're building these retention ponds, and then they're building the house above the street. They use the streets to drain the water. We don't usually have issues. There are neighborhoods here though, and you want to have a realtor that's going to be honest with you and tell you there are neighborhoods here that flood over and over and over again. And you don't necessarily need to buy a house in a flood zone or live in a flood zone and pay that crazy high flood insurance, okay? Which leads me to number two, which is flooding and home insurance. So with that flooding, there's a 100-year flood zone, there's a 500-year flood zone, and then out of the special flood zone. So when I go look at a house and you say, oh, I want to see this house, that's the first thing we look at. Has it flooded? Is it in a flood zone? Because your insurance is going to be really, really high if you have to carry that flood insurance, okay? Already our insurance has gone up. I feel like it's starting to level back down, but insurance has gone up. And so I shop it every single year. I have a broker I can refer you to, but you want to shop your insurance and then there's no need to pay that additional flood insurance and live in a flood zone. So even if your home is safe from flooding though, Houston's cost of living isn't always as low as people think. So let's move on to number three, which is the real cost of living. So no, we do not have state income tax, and that is amazing. So when we lived in Alabama, it was 5%. Some of my clients in California are paying 10, 12% in state income tax, in addition to your federal income tax. So we do not have that as far as state income tax, but we do have property tax, and that can be anywhere from 1.2 to over 3%. I saw a video the other day that said in Dallas, they don't have over 3% like they do Houston. Not true. There's several neighborhoods. It's all gonna depend on the county that you're in, the school district that you're in, and does the neighborhood have a MUD or municipal utility district? So if you have a MUD, it's going to be higher and it'll be paid off over time. So what happens is the developer goes in, he develops the land, and he pays for that infrastructure. So, all the plumbing and everything, electrical, all the stuff. And then the neighbors pay that municipal utility district or MUD off over time. So like in one neighborhood I used to live in, it was 3.5. Now it's 3.0. Wood Forest used to be over 3. Now some sections are 2.4, 2.2, depending on what school district you're in. So that's part of it. And then, as I mentioned before, the cost of living and homeowners insurance, storms and hail and things like that. You want to, it can be anywhere from $150 a month to $300 a month, depending on the size of your house and the cost of it. So think about that. And then the HOA fees can add up. On average, they're around $100 a month or $1,200 a year. A lot of times they can be more like Audubon. I think it's around $1,800-ish, but that includes mowing your front lawn and maintenance on your lawn. So that's included in that. Of course, some of the gated communities that have a manned gate are going to have higher HOA because you have to for that person to be there all the time. Okay, the next one was going to be number 5 is going to be traffic and long commutes. So Houston is massive. It's very spread out. And when we lived in Houston and my husband was commuting downtown to the medical center, yes, it was crazy. And you might sit in traffic for an hour and a half. Now that we live on the outskirts, it's really not that bad. There's a few pockets of areas like 1488 and 2978 where it says Egypt. That can get congested at 5 o'clock and you have to wait 2 or 3 light cycles. But I really don't sit in a ton of traffic, but I'm also not working in the city of Houston. I really don't even go past 99 anymore. Kind of the Woodlands is as far as I really need to go. I've got hospitals, Costco, groceries, everything I need. Unless I'm going to the rodeo or an Astros game or seeing my parents, I don't really need to go into the city and deal with all that traffic. But yes, of course, I-10, 610, 45, 59, those commutes can be crazy, which is just the trade-off of living in the city versus living in the suburbs. There are certain areas that are growing quickly and are more congested than others, and you will want to make sure you know that before. But where we are out in Montgomery area, it's really not horribly trafficy. Okay, and so with that size of Houston, choosing the right neighborhood can be a really big deal. And I want to talk to you about crime. So here's where I'm going to chime in with a personal story. I was born and raised in Harris County. When my parents got here, there were donkeys on the side of the road. It was a very, very different life in the 70s. It has changed, okay? So we lived in Harris County. We lived in a very nice luxury neighborhood. It was gated, not a manned gate, but gated. And at 4:30 in the morning, somebody had known that one of our neighbors left and they came in the exit. We saw it on the camera and they hit all of our houses. And when they hit our house the next morning, I was able to find these people using my credit card at the local gas station. They were buying candy, which is totally weird. But I had their license plate, video of them using my credit card, their car, make and model, everything. And the officer asked me to put it on a zip drive. We got it to him, but he said when I handed it to him, I just want you to know we're really not going to go after this person because it's $10 for them to get out of jail. And my husband kind of looked at me and was like, okay, we need to get out of here. So they have a new district attorney. At the time, it was Kim Ogg, and the consequences for criminals was not very severe, obviously. Now, when you get to Montgomery County, there's a big billboard that says, entering Montgomery County, if you commit a crime, we will prosecute you. So it's just different based on the county that you're in. Most of the crime I've ever heard about is breaking into a car. I've never heard of somebody's house getting broken into. I know it happens in the city. I'm not oblivious to that. But out here in the suburbs, if you leave your car parked on the street and your purse or your laptop in the car, it'll probably get broken into. Where we live out on acreage, so it's not quite as common, but it can happen. So you need to be aware of what areas you are in. There is a crime map that we can go to and we can look up what the crime is, what the sex offenders are. All those things are really important decisions when you're looking at where to purchase your home and what neighborhood. Now let's talk about the challenge of schools and what kind of schools we need to get your kids into if you have schools. Some public schools are rated great. Some are not. I like HAR app, Houston Association of Realtors. If you go down and you see a listing, it'll tell you what elementary, what junior high, what high school. You can click on that and it'll rate them. So if they're scoring a 90 or above on our state test, they're going to get an A. An 80 to an 89, they're going to get a B, so forth and so on. To me, the number one thing is how are these kids scoring on the standardized tests because that's our one basis. Now, obviously, that's not everything, but that's the academic side. If you go to some of these other sites, they might rank a school bad for not being diverse enough, or, all these meeting the gaps and different things that, some of the school districts can't control. So I like to go to HAR and see exactly what the academic side is and how they're scoring. You cannot say a whole school district is rated A across the board. There's not one school district. They can have an A+ rating as a whole district and still have C or D rated schools within that district. I will say that out in Montgomery ISD, I think almost all of them right now are A and B, and same with Magnolia. But like Conroe, if you're in the Woodlands and the township, they're almost all A's. You get out to Conroe High School and those areas and you're at C's. You can also look at the economically disadvantaged and all different things, all different charts that you can, what is going on in that school and what is important to you. If academics is number one, look at that. All the different parts of what to choose in a good school in a good neighborhood is going to be important when you're moving here. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is Houston's job market. Is it booming? What does that look like? So oil and gas and healthcare are going to be your two biggest industries, but across our state, construction is our biggest industry right now. So if you're coming here for oil and gas, all over the Woodlands, you've got Exxon, all the Chevron, all the different oil and gas companies. And then I just heard that Apple is putting a new plant here and going to have 20,000 more jobs in Houston. And I think that's going to be in town. So you've got huge industry here. And then of course, healthcare, we have the biggest healthcare system downtown in the nation. So that's a huge push. And then of course, a lot of our construction, whether that be for commercial or residential, there's a lot of development. So if you're in the construction world, or maybe you do HVAC or plumbing or electrical, all those are much needed as well because our city is growing. Our economy is really good right now. So everything is kind of flourishing and growing, and there is a need. Okay, so now let's talk about something that nobody wants to talk about, and that is the idea of termites, foundation issue, mold, different things that you can run into. Very rarely have I ever run into mold. And then termites, you can see sometimes there'll be like a tree and be conducive conditions to termites. I do have one house right now out on the lake that has active termites, not that I'm selling, but that an investor was looking at. But it's not very common to see that inside. It's more so to see, a tree, or a lot of times on an inspection, they'll say that the slab, it should have like 6 inches of clearance from mulch and different things, because that can be conducive to termites getting in. So really, a lot of our termite inspections is more just, is it an environment that termites could grow in? They don't usually show up on a report. And if they do, it's usually a tree or something that they see them in, they kill it at the spot and stop. But you do want to do a termite inspection. Again, I don't see a lot of mold, but then foundation is another one. So the foundation from the 80s, 70s, 80s, they always say it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you will have a crack in your slab and need to put some piers below. There is a neighborhood out on the lake that I see foundation issues all the time. I think the builder just didn't put good slabs in. I have a friend that lives in there. He's actually an inspector. His house had to have piers put in where you go in and they bolt it down and, add more stability. And now his house for 10 years has been fine. But you do want to watch for foundation and look for different cracks and different things throughout the house. Nowadays, with the new construction though, they're doing a lot of post tension and different kinds of slabs, and it's come a long way. So you don't see that quite as much. Usually if you're going to see it, I've been told you'll see it within the first 5 years of the building, but it's not as common. There are corner pops on the slab, which I get that on a lot of reports. That's very common, but you want to know what to look for and have an agent that knows what to look for as you're walking around a house to see, could this have foundation issues? So termites and foundation can be a big deal, just something you need to be aware of. Okay, the next thing is, why do some agents just want to sell and just push you into a home? Well, if you're a realtor and you're there to make money, a lot of agents are not very genuine, and they just say, oh, this is your home and this is beautiful. And, I always tell my clients, you're not buying a handbag, you're buying a home, and we have to go through it. Sometimes you find it the first day, sometimes it takes 20 homes to find it, and that's okay. I have showing assistants that help me because there's only one of me, and then once you narrow down, I'm gonna take over everything, but really you're just working with me. However, you need to be sure you can't be just finding the first house and going for it. Now, does that happen? Do we fall in love with our first house? Yes. But then we have to go through an inspection together. And there have been times that we have to pull out of purchasing that home because things are too big or we can't come to an agreement. So be wary of an agent who tells you, pushes a house on you without going through the whole thing, okay? You want to make sure that it's the right home and the right purchase, somebody who's gonna be really, really honest with you in your purchase. You also want somebody who knows the city. I was born and raised here, and so that's, all I know pretty much is the city of Houston and what areas to avoid and what areas to go to. So make sure that you have an agent that is experienced. There's several agents out there who are great marketing, really great videos of neighborhoods, great everything, but they're not from here and they don't know the city that well. So just be cautious of when you're hiring that agent. And then another thing is, how can you tell a good agent from a bad agent? Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna look at is honesty, and go get to know that agent. Talk to people who have bought or sold with them and let them know how honest they are. Do they fight for their clients? I would say that's probably my biggest asset is I like to get my clients the very best deal. I just did it yesterday on a new construction. I went through, I found the lowest price and they weren't giving it to me. And I'm like, well, this doesn't make sense. You just sold the same house for this much. This was new construction. And I was able to push them. So make sure you have an agent that does the work on the back end and make sure you're paying what you think you should be paying for the house and not just overpaying or overdoing it. And then somebody who's honest and isn't going to push you into a house that you don't need. One way to look at and see an agent's experience is you can go to the HAR, again, Houston Association of Realtors, and you can see all the homes that they've sold. So if you go on my map, you're going to see all the 300 homes that I've, or more, I don't know, I've lost, all in Northwest and into the city of. I don't really sell in Pasadena and Sugar Land. I have a great agent down there that I can get you to, but I don't sell a ton in those areas. I don't feel good advising you. So that's another thing to be cautious of. If you have an agent that lives, out in Conroe and is trying to show you how to buy a house in Pasadena, or some even try to show you how to buy a house in San Antonio, that's not a good sign. They need to be living and working and knowing the area where you're going to purchase. The last thing you want to do, find an agent, on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and then you go look at HAR map and they've sold 1 or 2 houses or 5. You need somebody with a lot of experience. So make sure you go and look that up. It's very, very important. Okay. My last thing is why I would be the best choice for you. So first, I've mentioned this before in my videos. I'm a solo agent. I do not have a team. I have a few girls that help me. One is my full-time assistant, and she will, set up our Zooms and follow up with you until you're ready to purchase. And when we're running around, she'll, see if the house is in a flood zone or set up a showing or write offers. She kind of does all my back-end stuff. And then I have a few showing assistants that, if we have 3 people in town, they will show while I show, or vice versa. Or if you want to see, lots of different areas, I might send them with you the first day or 2 until you're like, oh my gosh, I think we found the house. Then you're going to work with me. I'm going to be the one doing your inspections. I'm going to be the one negotiating your repairs, negotiating your price, making sure all those boxes are checked. Again, I was born and raised in the city of Houston. My parents still live down there, and so I know this city like the back of my hand. I did just win. My EXP has 90,000 agents nationwide, and I just won in 2024 the top solo agent for the state of Texas, which I thought was really, really cool. So not as a team, because we don't obviously compete against, the teams have their, groups, and then we have our solo agent. So I won best solo agent for the state of Texas. You'll be calling me directly. You'll be talking to me, and then, just my girls will kind of help assist. So, if you're thinking about making the move, I can help you find the right neighborhood that's a perfect fit for you. I do this every single day. My contact information is below. And if you want to know the best areas to move in 2025, that's going to be one of my next videos. So stay tuned and I will see you there. And I hope you have a blessed day.